I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with a cattle market summary for the week ending February the 22nd. And have you ever got to the point in your life where you just wanted to cry uncle and maybe not necessarily just give up, but just cry uncle and say that's enough, I'm not going to take any more? I think that's about where we're at on this negotiated fat cattle trade. Just 2 weeks ago was a beat down fail of a trade because your cattle feeders had the audacity to want to gain $3 at the late in the winter after one of the worst winters in recent memory, the worst mud, the most bitter cold temperature, weight loss, terrible performance, and all that goes with, right at the time when the packers are getting ready to ramp up their kills and gaining a lot of ground on their margins. And to have the audacity to want to gain $3 there, they just refused to trade. They'd kept their foot on the market for weeks and weeks on end, refused to allow it to get to 125. And then whenever it was evident that it was going to be at least 125, then like I said, your cattle feeders wanted 127, wanted to gain some of that market position that they hadn't gained for weeks and weeks. Then the packers just laid down. I've got over 80% of my needs. Why do I need to fool with you? And so this kind of had an incomplete trade. And then last week we come in and cattle feeders weren't really feeling up to try to gain any more market position, so kind of had a steady trade. And then this week, after we saw the results of some out front beef sales that were at higher prices and way more volume than we have seen in any recent years, and continued bad weather and everything that goes with, cattle feeders come out, wanted to gain a little bit of ground there, and once again bulled up and just shut down. You know, nobody thought when the packers kind of quit feeding cattle, they had fed cattle and been in sweetheart deals with major corporate feeders for a long time. But nobody thought whenever the packers moved to get out of feeding cattle because it was taking so much capital that they could no longer gain any market position anymore. But you notice in the last few years here, you don't have packers openly feeding cattle. They used to let those entities live a little bit, but now have no desire to do that. And I think we're about to get maybe to the point where some of your formula traders have had enough too. Guys, you know, if you're negotiated guys that you kind of make fun of and feel sorry of at the same time, if they can't gain any ground, you're not gaining any ground on your base price for your formula either, and should be well into the 130s by now. But we cannot seem to gain any ground now, and so it's not working out very good. And now that some of these guys that are in these contracts or promised their cattle to them, I'll turn my numbers into you, high for the week or the average plus kickers or something like that. You know, if we can't gain any ground on that base price, where are those guys at? And might be able to finally get a little help from those guys too. But I had the idea of everybody getting together and establishing some rules. I think at some point you just have to fight it off. We're going the way of the hogs so fast that it's at breakneck speeds right here. But I've even come up with an acronym for the movement. It's called U.N.C.L.E, the Unified Negotiated Cattlemen's Leverage Effort. And you have to establish some rules here. You come out early in the week on a Monday and you release a negotiated show list. Those cattle will sell negotiated, whether it's with consolidated beef producers of Omaha, some other cooperative group, whether that individual cattle feeder sells those cattle negotiated to one of the packers, whether they sell in an auction, whether they sell on the Fed Cattle Exchange, but those cattle will definitely sell negotiated somewhere. Very transparent, knows how many cattle are going to be up for sale on a negotiated price, and then nobody takes anything until Wednesday. Everybody gets together, prices the cattle, come out, and after Wednesday morning, whoever calls first one shows up with the money gets the cattle. That would be a fair way to do it. They keep wanting to put things off, procrastinating the trade, just in hopes that something bad will happen, whether the board crashes or something like that. At 3 o'clock on Friday, turning the phones off, no longer accepting any offers. I know you guys think that's crazy. That's the way they did it on the books, or on the bricks back in the old days. They had established rules. If you broke the rules, you were out. And you know, it's getting where now everybody's just out for themselves, and as an industry you have to get together. You know, the Packer's putting his arm around these cattle feeders and saying, we're in this deal together. You make this real uniform product, and you help us out, and we're not going to let you feed your way into a break even, and if you start to and your cattle get heavy, then we're going to penalize you for that. We want you to be BQA certified, so there won't be any way liability to come back on us. So you've got to go to your local county extension office and sit and listen to some college kids to give you something that's so elementary that it insults your intelligence as a cattle producer and a cattle feeder. You know, it's just ridiculous. But you can no longer just keep, it's like a hobo rolling dice with a millionaire in an alley. You know, there's no way that he's going to be able to beat somebody that shows up with 100 times more money than what he's got in his pocket, and it just will not work. But got to establish some rules, got to get together on this deal. If you guys want to get together, we can start making caps and jackets with this U.N.C.L.E deal on there. We can make some of the hat stickers, because they put those on there because no self-respecting cowboy would poke a hole in his hat on purpose. We can make some of those cheap bundles of cotton gloves that most guys just end up using the rope with so they don't catch their finger in the dally. But something's got to happen here, guys, or this industry is just going down the tubes. As I've said 100 times, as long as the cattle feeding industry is based on people buying cattle in a competitive feeder cattle market and selling fat cattle in a non-competitive market, it is a piss poor investment, and it has no future. And that's where we're at right now. And you know, we got to have somebody step up and push this deal to try to save the things as we know them, because it's also affecting your cow-calf producers. How are they going to sell feeder cattle or stocker cattle whenever it's just drying up? It's a trickle-down effect, and it's drying up. How are people going to keep paying these big prices for these feeder cattle and these stocker calves if your cattle feeders you know, have no ability to ever gain anything? And you know, we're running now where these cattle are not going to pencil out. You know, a lot of these cattle that's been in the bad storms and the mud and the cold, they're got a cost of gain around 90 cents. It's not the 65 or 70 that they plugged in whenever they hedged those cattle. And a lot of the guys that are in an agreement with the packer, you know, we're kind of counting on them to let them live. But now that they're not letting them live, it's time to get something done. But I don't know who it is. You know, I talk about consolidated beef producers and any way to try to get some more competition in this cash negotiated trade. I don't see any of your big icon feeding leaders coming to do it, because those guys crawled in bed with the packing industry years and years ago, and that's why we're where we are now. But anyway, that's my soapbox story for this week, and I'll climb down, and I'm just kidding about that deal, not really. But let's look at the board for last week. February live cattle futures. Monday was a holiday. Tuesday was up $1.25. Wednesday up 45. Thursday down 70, and Friday up 105. Right ahead of that failed cattle trade. Live cattle for February ended the week at 128.68. That was up $2.06 for the week. Your April board ended the week at 128.88, just 20 cents higher, and that was up 171 for the week. March feeder cattle, of course, Monday closed. Tuesday up $1.15, Wednesday up 12, Thursday down 65, Friday down 32, ending the week with March feeder cattle contracts at 142.90, up 30 cents for the week. April was up just 8 cents for the week at 145.30. Talked about the fat cattle trade enough. The only trade that we really saw develop and it come through mandatory price reporting in Iowa, they had about 6,000 head sale from anywhere from 124.5 to 128. I heard through the grapevine that a lot of those cattle are going to have time on them as your packers are trying to set this market up for a fail and continue to keep their margins around $200 a head while your cattle feeders are begging and hoping for $20 a head. That's if they don't stub their toe and then terrible weather conditions and performance and then they're losing money again. But a little bit of dress trade from 197 to 202, but real disappointing negotiated fat cattle trade, and something's got to be done. Box beef cutout values, of course, higher for the week as we're getting closer to spring, and a lot of out front sales that don't really go in on this spot market beef, but still it's making everything higher. It's been such a miserable winter. When it does start to warm up, people are going to be coming out of their cabins, going out to eat. They're going to be dusting off those grills. They're ready to have some get-togethers and enjoy some meat products, even though the Democratic presidential nominees think that everybody's going to go vegan to save the world. But no, people still like to eat meat, and you celebrate with a steak, not a piece of tofu and not even a chicken breast. But let's look at box beef cutout values. Your average trade for the week last week on choice cuts, $217.72, up $1.04. Select average trade $212.36, up 31 from the average of the previous week. Choice select spread of $5.36. 551 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter, we knew it was going to be disappointing due to shutdowns and improvements in some plants. 577,000 was 19,000 less than the previous week, but still 2,000 more than the same week a year ago. And we're expecting the slaughter to increase in speed on the chains quite a bit drastically here over the next several weeks as the packers got everything going their way, and why not just put their gas on the throttle. But let's look at some of your feeder cattle markets. Your real-time index through Cattle Market Central to end the week last week at 140.99. That was down 48 cents for the week. Your cash feeders and your auctions mostly steady. Some unevenness there depending on which side of I-70 you're on, how bad the weather was. Horrible weather again, and it just will not quit. Hopefully that we'll get an early spring as we get into March and April after this horrible weather we've had. The only grace is going to be there is going to be more grazing once the temperatures warm up than you can shake a stick at. That snow means a lot of grass, and there's going to be tons of it. There's going to be tons of graze out wheat down in the southern plains, and there's not going to be enough of these light cattle around to stock it all, and there's going to be really cheap gains to be had out there. But spots on your stocker cattle and calves $2 to $3 higher, and I'm going to start saying stocker cattle more and more, because not really necessarily a lightweight calf, but kind of a calf weight yearling, been hard wintered, got a lot of green to him, got a lot of condition, got some thinness. And those kind of cattle are where everybody is at right now, and you're just going to see the market on those launch when you see them available, and we're already starting to see that in spots. Your cattle on feed report that should have been out a month and a half ago finally come out. Your January 1st inventories through NAS come out to be 101.9. Your average of the analyst guess was 102.2, so that was slightly bullish. Your placements were even more bullish. December placements come out to be 98.2. Your average guess was 101.8, so that's positive. Marketing is about like they should have been 99.4 compared to the guess of 99.8. But that probably would have helped if we hadn't had the government shut down. We would have got that information, but it's too far gone now. But over the next 2-3 weeks, probably going to get caught up on all those behind reports and and we'll be in good shape to kind of move forward there. I'm going to give you some individual quotes from several sales late in the week. On Friday, Fullerton Livestock Market, a market I'm not familiar with and haven't talked about here before, but Fullerton, Nebraska. A guy was there and sending me some pretty impressive quotes out of there. But a load of big steers, 54 head of steers, weighed 921. Did comment that they were empty, had a good weighing condition on them, but load of steers weighed 921 at 143.60. We might need to get a little competition in the fat cattle arena for those to work. Erickson, Nebraska, had a lot of good cattle there on Saturday. Got this picture from a friend of mine there that was on site there at the sale. Look at these light steers, or what they bring. 174 head of lightweight steers, weigh 554 at 193.75. The bigger brothers, there's 120 of them, weigh 612 and bring 178.50. That's some of those prices I was talking about. And then some true stalker type cattle, some really green cattle, and you think that Nebraska is the only place they sell them that high. Fort Scott, Kansas. That's not there in the middle of the feedlot industry. That's eastern Kansas. Fort Scott had a consignment of really good green cattle in there. 79 head of 686 pound stalker steers bring 167.60. That's a look at your week's markets on the road here, returning from West Georgia at a bull sale where they are underwater, guys. I mean, it is flooded out in Tennessee, Georgia region, all in there. But that's a look at your markets, and we'll talk to you next week.